Starting off, guys, I'd like to debunk some dude in this community. He's known as Clavicular. He claims that status is more important than looks. And he also claimed that Andrew Tate is someone you should look up to if you are sub 3 PSL scale, if you are a quote unquote subhuman. Because Andrew has a quote unquote repulsive face, but he still slayed even before he had the status. Because, according to Clavicular, he was a good manipulator. This is a man who is supposedly a repulsive face, right? Clav man, I don't know what you are on. I mean, brother, you have completely lost the plot. You have to realize that Andrew Tate wasn't always this balding guy, right? He wasn't always this balding middle-aged guy who had questionable jawline visibility. Yeah, sure, he has a somewhat recessed chin, but he had good jawline visibility when he was younger. In fact, his face overall reminds me of someone like a Sean Harris, except he has one like an inverted flaw. He has a wider jaw than Sean, but he has a wider jaw than Sean, but he has a more recessed chin than Sean. So yeah, other than that, his eye area, his hairline, all of it kind of resembles that guy Sean Harris. This guy was not some ugly subhuman who could simply win via manipulation. There's no such thing as a subhuman looking guy winning via manipulation. This guy wouldn't be manipulating shit. This guy wouldn't be manipulating shit if he was a manlet and actually bad looking. That simply wouldn't occur, brothers. That simply wouldn't occur. If he was actually bad looking, he would never have women in his mid-20s taking care of him, 3 women at once, when he was flat out broke. That wouldn't happen. This, according to Clav, is a subhuman, right? And this is someone subhumans should look up to learn their manipulation. Bro, I cannot stress this out enough. I don't know what Clav is on. This guy was decent looking. He had one facial flaw, one thing that could be called a flaw, and that doesn't even affect his frontal profile. And he had lower body fat percentages when he was younger, right? So he had a much more visible jawline. This is a picture where the lighting is from below, where his mouth is open, yet from the front he has a pretty decently visible jawline. You are gonna call that guy ugly, man? Be my guest. He also height mocks you into oblivion, Clav. Height mocks you and frame mocks you into oblivion. So yeah, stop coping. You just got mocked. By the way, the second video that I'm going to react to, the first video, in fact, that was a video, but I did not show you guys the clip, is this one.
Men turning their back on each other and striving to be the 1% is what is causing the male loneliness epidemic. I just spent the last hour watching this podcast. They're basically talking about what are men and women struggling with in today's dating world. So let's start with
By the way, this might offend some people in this community, like some people who are ardent watchers of Rehab Room. Rehab Room once made a video on brotherhood, and he said that guys hate each other, but women just dislike each other. Like, Rehab man, I understand why that might be your experience, why you may have faced that in your life. But the thing is, real male friends, they simply make better companions than real female friends. That is objectively true. Yes, it might be true that if you are a weakling in a certain aspect, men are much more violent in the ways that they snuff you out. Women would not be as violent in the ways that they snuff you out, or even other female friends out. They would be much more strategic and much more manipulative, right? That's what they would be. Also, they might listen to your woes and your mental state, like without telling you anything, right? They wouldn't say anything that offends you to your face, but behind your back, they will bitch about you far more than men would. The only reasonable and useful advice that you as a man can get is from other men. who are genuinely your friends, which as it is, are simply better than female friends. And Nora Vincent, because Rehab also pointed Nora Vincent in that video, people see weakness in a man, they simply want to sniff it out. Women do not see weakness in you and want to help you. That's simply not true.
Are struggling with. So basically, it is statistically true that younger women are outperforming men for the first time in pretty much forever.
And why is that? These people never talk about the main reasons that younger men are being outperformed. Is it because younger men have lower IQ? No, absolutely not. Is it because younger men have lower mathematical abilities? Absolutely not. Is it because younger men are less logical and rational? Absolutely not. Men are the more logical gender, men are the less neurotic gender, and men are the gender that is generally more open to experiences. So why are men falling behind? Maybe, just maybe, it has something to do with the schooling system treating them as defective girls. Oh, your development starts a year later. No, that must be your own fault. You must be put into the same class as women, in the same grade as women, when your brain is simply not as developed. Who the fuck cares about you, bro? And then you put 4-year-old males with 4-year-old females. What's the genuine outcome of it? When the reasonable action, the reasonable mode of action would be not sending boys to school until they're 5. This eventually bites them in the ass. They are essentially fighting an uphill battle, right? The second thing is playful children. And by the way, male children are supposed to be more playful, but even when, let's say, you have a playful female child and a playful male child, the male child is much more likely to be punished. Now all of this has data behind it. I'm not going to quote the individual research papers. I do that a lot. I show you guys a lot of those screenshots, I show you guys a lot of that data, but yeah, I'm not going to do this for you. Then what is the way in which men are taught? Let's talk about a few subjects. Let's start with literature, a subject that women vastly outperform men in. The kind of literature that you have in upper grades, the higher grades, is mostly people-centric literature. It does not explore things that men are more interested in, such as mystery, such as, let's say, philosophy, or stuff that generally leaves you questioning, stuff like who goes there. It generally plays into the fear of being replaced. It plays into the fear of, let's talk about Lovecraftian horror, the ideas that human beings are smaller, there's something superior to human beings, that we are limited by our perception. Of course, stuff like that might not appeal to women because women are conditioned, and women more or less are that way, that they simply like to see themselves through a lens of self-righteousness and self-superiority. So any literature that genuinely questions that, there might be something greater out there than us, things that we are not capable of comprehending, that our senses might not be the ideal device for viewing the world, that it might be completely fucked up. We may not have comprehension skills when we are subjected to certain things that offends women, and that is probably also the reason you have a lot of feminists recently freaking out over Francis Bacon, and that deserves a video of its own. That deserves a completely different video of its own. So when I was in high school, the novels I was forced to read were mostly centered around the themes of betrayal and kingly, upheavals, interpersonal conflicts, and romance. Of course, I could not relate to this because most guys are chill and laid back. Stories of true crime and murder and theft and rape, all of that appeals far more to women for some reason. That is the reason women form the majority of viewers of true crime, while men form the majority of viewers of science fiction. Women also form the majority of viewers of soap operas. So, of course, there's no reason that these things do not appeal to women. You had feminist stories like The Story of an Hour. You had stories like The Spider and the Fly. Of course, we were not interested in this stuff. This was all pandering to the likes of women. This was all pandering to what women liked. We never found genuine interest in this. If we were, when there was stories like Invisible Man, when there was stories like, and they would never give you stories like War of the Worlds, the guys in the classroom were far more interested in it. Then again, you have history, something that I grew to love over time. The history books are also geared in a way that it panders to women. It's mostly about remembering dates that women absolutely are great at. They remember the dates of their anniversaries. They would scream and shout at you if you forget those. And then you had those lip service paragraphs to certain rulers in the history of our country. Of course, women are more interested in people, and men are much more interested in things that were invented, the battles that went on. That is the reason that I went on to love history over time. Weapons that were used, technological developments, all of that stuff is what appeals to men. Instead, you have lip service to rulers and dates to remember, which appeals to women. Of course, they supersede men in school, and of course, men are forced to do homework. These people will be like, oh brother, we have to program men. We have to program men to think that doing homework is not feminine. Doing homework is feminine. Doing homework is feminine. I will not have any other way. I will not have this any other way. Doing homework is feminine. Being subservient, following orders like that, doing chores when you are like supposed to like chill at home, that is something women would do. You remove all of this shit that treats guys like that treats guys like defective girls, you'll probably have guys performing a lot more. And then you have gender biased grading, which accounts for 21% of men falling behind in school. This eventually leads to less men in colleges. This eventually leads to less qualified men. This eventually leads to less and less performing men. Not because they are less, not because they're less capable, not because they're less intelligent, but because they are treated as defective women. Now to move on.
These powerful, high-achieving women asking for of women are really going after the top men. Like, if you are a top man in today's age, if you're over 6 feet tall, if you're relatively handsome and you make a lot of money, you're killing it. But let's be honest, majority of people are not that way. So the only real actionable advice for women at this stage is to date short kings and guys who potentially make less or have more of a slow burn attraction. And what should guys do?
Again, I made a video on this. This is all the kinds of conflicting advice that one, men should make peace. So in some videos they are saying, these feminists would say that it's because men don't want women who make more than them, and in other videos they will be saying it's because women want men that make more than them. Now the former is simply not an issue. The later is always the issue. Men would be perfectly happy with women who make more than them, but the issue is this research that women who make more than their husbands control the man in the relationship, deny him sex, and make his life more miserable. That is the reason that a lot of men, they can probably go with women who have a better job than they do, but they would probably be mistreated.
They're essentially the problem. Why is that? Men abandoning other men. There has always been initiatives by women to empower each other and bring each other up, but the same types of communities just don't exist for men. Right? This whole male loneliness epidemic is a male problem. And this guy in the center, he does
Alright, I'm not gonna bore you guys anymore. So, first and foremost, it's not a male problem. Women do not empower each other. The empowerment that she is talking about, and this gentleman perfectly pointed this out. You can't admit that most women chase the top 2% of men, then turn around and blame men's loneliness on a lack of support systems. Bingo. The support women give each other often reinforces unrealistic standards, telling each other that they all deserve a 6 foot plus guy making six figures, even if that's statistically impossible. Bingo. That's not support, that's emotional inflation. That is 100% true. Most of the so called emotional support in female circles is not emotional support, but rather emotional inflation. And it's most of the time not even genuine because behind the other woman's back, these women are probably manipulating that woman's. That other woman's perception perception in the minds of other men. I mean, basically their reputation, right? Maybe the issue isn't, and this gentleman was absolutely right, by the way, in whatever he says. Women don't prop each other up. This idea that women have been brought to power by the combined support of other women, it's absolutely false. See, somehow women couldn't do this in the 1800 years after Christ's death. Not even 1800 years after Christ's death, but 299,188 years. I'm make. Wait a moment. 209. Fuck this shit, man. I'm pretty bad at maths, I guess. Homo sapiens have existed for 300,000 years, and deduct 1900 for them. So women, shit, man, I'm pretty fucking terrible at maths. Let's say we deduct 100 from it. 298,900 years, women did not empower each other into jobs. Now, why was that? Because it was not, because the modern movements that you see are not results of women empowering each other. The critical theory is directly to blame for the effects of your supposed epidemic. It was engineered by technocratic elites at the start of the 19th century. Bingo. Bingo, absolutely bingo. These technocratic elites, they, as humans started making more and more inventions that allowed for these cushion desk jobs, the technocratic elites found ways in which they could extract labor from another portion of the human population which they could not before. Because in the past, most jobs were labor jobs, including jobs that we think today to be intellectual jobs. Do you think that a woman would have had, the average woman would have the patience and physical ability, the cortisol tolerance that Thomas Alva Edison did to make the filament, try to make the filament over and over hundreds of times, thousands of times, fail over and over again? No, most women wouldn't have that much of persistence. Do you think most women would have the persistence to paint the Sistine Chapel hanging upside down? Having the paint drip on your face little by little every day? No, man. That is not foot mode. That's not that life. It's not that life most women are built for. Even these quote unquote intellectual jobs were much more akin to the modern labor jobs that we see today. So of course women were not into those jobs back in the day. As soon as there were these inventions, the technocrats found a way to get women into these jobs and extract labor from them. Then you have a system where these billionaires would teach women that not having children and having a career is the best thing that you can have. That having children is sacrificing your career while having 20 children from 10 different baby mamas. They have successfully convinced women to be genetic dead ends. I mean, there's no other way to put this. And yeah, look at this. Oh, men are just angry that women are returning their own energy. Men have been demanding perfect bodies. Brother, men don't have a single body type. Men have variable body types compared to women. There was a recent research done on lip sizes, because there's a filler hysteria in women. Women think that men want a certain kind of lip, but most men prefer average lips. So most women don't even need to do anything, reduction or augmentation, while smaller lips and bigger lips still receive decent ratings and almost the same. While with men, women preferred thinner lips, while very thin lips still got much higher ratings than very plump lips. Women simply have much more rigid preferences when it comes to physical features. Now, this is one example. We would eventually get more and more data coming into this. Let's say about jaw sizes, nose sizes. We would eventually get more data on this. So perfect bodies, perfect faces, bullshit. Low body count, yeah. I don't think most women would be very comfortable with a fuck boy either. And let me play this clip from Mackin.
There's empirical evidence that having a hot boyfriend is a hassle. Research suggests that hot guys are less satisfied, less committed, and more interested in others when they're in relationships. Likely because they have more and better options. And even if your specific hot...
Alright, you would want a hot guy, sure. But would you want a guy who has had a past body count? Would you want a guy who was essentially genetically made to be a cheater? I would probably say that most women wouldn't want that either. And there's research from Elizabeth McClintock that unattractive women tend to have higher body counts. Because they often shoot outside of the league, end up failing because of a lack of erotic capital, and then they end up failing to pair bond with men that they eventually settle with. So that is the whole idea of wanting women with lower body counts. It's not because they are quote unquote less attractive, but because they went after men who are better looking. And there's also research again that high testosterone men who are high testosterone and low cortisol facial hormone profiles make the faces that are desired by the vast majority of men, but those men only prefer a select minority of high estrogen women. So they would just have sex with these women and leave them in the dirt. Of course, a man would want a woman who has not had a relationship or a short-term relationship in the past with one such man, because she would compare the guy she is with now with the guy she had been with in the past. And there's again research on this from Professor T.J. Cousins. Women who are in relationships with men whom they consider less attractive than them often have more tendencies of breaking up, more frequent thoughts of cheating, and are less receptive to mate guarding efforts. Women are asking for the bare minimum, and men prefer to blame things they cannot change about themselves, like height, instead of lack of introspection, accountability, and growth. Yeah, you would see this same claim thrown around over and over again in females, like, oh, why are men insecure about their heights? Why there are much more important things to worry about, like emotional intelligence? Yeah, sure. Lack of emotional intelligence is the thing that requires men to make hundreds of thousands of dollars more. Not being an inch shorter, right? Right? And I made a post on this recently. Motherfucker, where the fuck are you, man? Yeah, this one. Yeah, not feasible. So basically, a man of average height has to make $100,000 more than the average income. So $138,000 for a guy who's 5'8", $24,000 more for a guy who's 5'10". It probably equalizes when you are around like 5'11" or something like that. Yeah, so a guy has to make $160,000 a month simply a year if simply he is average height. This is the life of the average man, by the way, compensating for existing. Now they did this same thing for Asian men. They have not ran individual research. They have not ran individual researches for individual facial features. But assuming from what the average Asian man looks like, an average Asian man has high-set eyebrows, narrower eyes. They tend to have inward gonions and thinner jaws. They tend to have less prominent cheekbones. They tend to have flatter maxillas. So yeah, these features are features that would require you to make hundreds of thousands of dollars more. There's no data on balding, there's no data on Frankfurt recession. But yeah, if you generally have a less masculine and more neotenous face, you have to make more money to compensate for it. And you know what? Yesterday I was having a discussion with a female friend of mine. The issue with a lot of women is everything that they do has to be seen through the keyhole of self-righteousness. And I was pulling up all of these stats, and she said the most dumb statement that I have ever heard. Why are you so statistical? Why not be more logical? Shout out to my boy Prince. He doubled down and said that is the most dumb statement ever. Statistics are the most logical thing to ever exist. There is nothing that's more logical than statistics. And she said something extremely stupid along the lines of, I said something along the lines of, unattractive men are simply treated worse, are mistreated in relationships. And of course, she had to jump the topic. Oh, by mistreatment, you mean when he cheats on her and she leaves her, right? Like, brother, unattractive men don't get to cheat. That was what's kind of evident from Mac and Murphy's clip. All right. You see a lot of these, you would see a lot of the, I think she probably got it from one of those Instagram reels where women make videos like that, where they are like making a video where they say, oh, I gave the ugly guy a chance and he cheated on me. Now this is complete bullshit. This is a grapes are sour sort of syndrome. You know, what these women do is they behave like these guys who are rejected, and they say shit like, oh, she was flat anyway, I was not into her anyway. That is just coping, man. That's just coping, absolute cope. Why, if she was flat, if that was such a big issue, why did you go for her? And these women are doing the same thing. They are calling the guy ugly not because the guy was ugly, but because she was cheated on. Now, this is one of those things. This is one of those things that Francis Bacon always talks about. Confirmation bias. This is the ego of women. This is the ego of women at play. Don't make narratives that you have in your mind based off the ego of women. That is essentially what you need to stop doing. These women are extremely egotistic, and they are making up these narratives, and they will make you think that these unattractive men are equally likely to cheat as attractive men. And the research from Hasselton, the research from T.J. Cousins, which talks about men being mistreated because they are not as good looking, especially, and Hasselton's study was conducted how women behave during periods, and she had to jump the gun again. Oh, you're talking about periods, you only exist because your mom had periods. Brother, we are not talking about periods. We're not talking about it like some retarded religious conservative who believes that it's some mythical event that occurs because some god cursed some ancestral woman or stuff like that. That is a common theme in a lot of religions. So we are not talking about that. We're not calling it impure assumption. We're talking about how women's behavior changes during their periods when it comes to attractive men and unattractive men. And why is it so difficult to digest that? And the men that are mistreated the most are the demographic that is least likely to cheat. Yeah, that's absolutely the truth. In fact, the men who are most likely to cheat receive the best behavior and treatment, women's best selves in relationships. And that is the reason that they cheat to begin with, because they know they can get away with it. Bad people are often bad because they know they can get away with it. Our mistreatment and our judgment is not always fair, especially when we are talking about this particular thing. Women's judgment and their deliberations of men's character is not fair. Yeah, and to move on to talk about how women really do, supposedly prop up each other. Women have greater anti-women bias in scientific peer review than men. Women strategically manipulate other women's reputation to win out, attracting the attention from charred. No, they're not competing for you, Normie. Women are less cooperative towards their own sex than men in the iterated prisoner's dilemma. Holy shit, man. Holy shit, this guy is annoying the shit out of me. In general, women's relationships are not the relationships that are empowering. Now, about the body count, women are the ones who are much more likely to body shame other women. Women themselves deep down know this, that having a high body count is something that makes you unsuitable to a long-term partner, especially if you are settling with a man who is on your level as an unattractive woman. They know this, and that's the reason they themselves use it as a slur. So yeah, I'll leave you guys with this, and please, man, like, I know for women, if there's any female viewers of this channel, it's difficult to do this, but please take your ostrich ass head out of the sand.